All right, I'm just going to present from sitting here since the camera's this way today. All right, hi everybody. Thank you for coming out. Good morning to 1 Million Cups Westminster. Gabby, are we good on your end? Okay, great. I'm Graham Dodge. I'm the Executive Director of Magic. We are a 501c3 nonprofit set up to do technology, education, innovation, incubation here in Westminster. We are a community sponsor and the host today for 1 Million Cups. 1 Million Cups is also sponsored by Jeannie Bird Baking Company, who is providing the free baked goods and coffee for us in the back. We also have a virtual coffee sponsorship for those of you on Zoom or on Facebook Live. You can go to furnacehillscoffee.com and get 25% off your entire online order using the discount code 1MC Westminster. And what was that? Sorry. Oh, that's good. And we are also sponsored by Startup Portal, Rick Leinbach right here, the CEO of Startup Portal, who is a equity crowdfunding support and outsourced CFO support services company here in Westminster. So we just go through what 1 Million Cups Westminster is for the uninitiated. And let me see if the clicker works. Here we go. So our mission is to lower the barrier for access to education, resources, and connections for entrepreneurs. The mission does not get accomplished without the pillars and the core program, which are that this is about presentations and not pitches. It's about connection, not networking. It's to be for the community, by the community. Nobody owns 1 Million Cups Westminster. Nobody's being paid to do 1 Million Cups Westminster, and we are radically and intentionally inclusive. We meet every week on Wednesdays from 9 to 10 a.m. 2 presenters whenever possible. Today we have one, a returning presenter. Some of you may remember Airgility. And then organizations presenting should be less than 5 years old and willing to ask for help. We do make exceptions to that rule sometimes. And then we always try to remember to end with the question, what can we as a community do to help you? This is our organizing team, myself, Graham Dodge, Russ Hammett, Vicki Slinkman from Ting, John Wheatman, attorney at law, Tina Thomas from Infinite Love Project, Julius Knapp from Dirigible Systems, and Gabby Rose, also of Magic. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our presenter, Pramod from Airgility. Pramod, you've got the screen, so to speak.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me back. Sorry I'm not there with you in person to enjoy what I think I heard something about baked goods and good coffee. But I do have my Million Cups cup here, so I'm there in spirit. So what I'll do today, as per what you just said about guidelines, I'll share a little bit about our technology, do a recap of who we are, what we're doing. We were there in Westminster a year ago, just about, when you guys had the in-person event, which was really great. And we were there flying in your garage and things like that. So I remember that fondly. And so I'll share that, and I'll give you an update on where we are, what we've done the last year, and talk a little bit about the obstacles and things like that are out there that we face. And we'll go from there and just sort of get into a little bit of conversation if you guys are up for that.
Sounds good.
So to just kind of recap, we do AI and autonomy for aerial robotics. This is a burgeoning field. Robotics in general is starting to really, get mainstream, despite the sort of downturn right now in the economy, or the perceived downturn, or whatever it is. Robotics is still getting a lot of attention. Maryland happens to have, some good robotics companies such as Robotic Research and Perrone and all those that are also doing different things with autonomy. We tend to focus more specifically on full autonomy with drones, with UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, or uncrewed, as we call them nowadays, uncrewed aerial vehicles, and being able to operate in almost any environment, including environments where there's no GPS. Traditionally, if you went to the store and you bought a drone from Best Buy or wherever, a consumer type drone, you're going to need GPS to fly it, and it's not going to fly very well without it. So having that capability, or being able to do that, is a very difficult problem set to solve. And to be able to do it in a situation where you can use it for many use cases, even more difficult. So that's what we tackle. Just as a reminder, the founders, we're a very entrepreneurial bunch. very steeped in aviation and aerospace, very passionate about it. Both my partners and I are co-founders of Airgility, and both aerospace engineers from the University of Maryland, and have very complementary skill sets in terms of the founding team. And I'll share more about our team in a little bit. But what do we do? So what we do is essentially, and before I tell you exactly what we do, one of the things that's happening in the world is drones are being used more and more for many different use cases. You guys probably already know all that. You probably see it in the news. If you're into drones, you'll see that. You're probably seeing it play out right now in the news with Ukraine as well. And one of the things that we focus on is, well, how can we utilize UAVs or uncrewed vehicles to do things in the enterprise world, to improve lives, save lives, what have you. And one of the areas that we play in is the inspection sector, where, okay, we've got to go inspect critical infrastructure. How do we do that with drones? So many companies, many enterprise companies have embraced that, are starting to do that, have done that for a few years, in fact. But what they're finding is that they have to find good trained pilots, and these drones are flown manually, and they're not finding the ROI. They're just not seeing it because it still requires a lot of manpower. Drones crash. That's one of the rules, that drones do crash. They're not perfect vehicles yet, and stuff happens. And if you're trying to get into a confined or a tight environment and you're flying it, you got to be pretty skilled to be able to handle that. And so one of the things we hear from our prospects and clients is that this is not something that they want to continue to be doing, where they have to find really good trained pilots, and then, and a lot of times they just can't find them. So then these jobs get unfilled as well. Bottom line is that we're moving from manual to self-flying software, where you literally hit a button and something happens. So imagine a video game where you're just pressing buttons and something's happening on the screen. That's essentially what we do. These are just a few little news clips or little, that I just shared with you to sort of share this sort of that's happening in the world. As far as Airgility goes, again, not really doing a pitch here, just kind of sharing our technology, where we're going, the entrepreneurial challenges, et cetera. But this is a quote that was told to us from a fairly renowned CTO of a company called Volatus up in Toronto, that has looked at probably every technology in the world. And they said, hey, when it comes to AI and autonomy, you guys are ahead. And he goes, wait a minute, no, let me back up. You guys are clearly ahead. So we've now gone around the world since I last saw you a year ago, and have heard this a few times. So I'll share a little bit more of what we've done in the last year. The problem that we're solving, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you always have to figure out what's the real problem we're solving here. And in our case, it's self-flying software, and how do you actually get the job done? And why does it matter, or what is important about getting the job done is that traditionally, historically, it was hard to get the job done because you had to have this really good balance of weight, power consumption. And if you got algorithms working on your drone, that's like your brain. Your brain is processing, and it takes energy. So you wear out the battery pretty fast, which means you can't necessarily stay in the air very long to get the job done. So our secret sauce essentially is this balance of algorithms that are AI based, non-AI based, and then the sensors all kind of fuse together to be very efficient. And despite sometimes you have computational limitations. So it's onboard real-time autonomous edge processing. What does that mean? It means I am giving you an insight right now. You don't have to go and look at it later. Again, traditionally, people are downloading data off a drone and then post-processing it, and pushing it to the cloud and then analyzing it. But there are many missions where you might want to know something right now, right here. Could be time critical in terms of safety. It could be time critical in terms of, hey, we've already got all our people out here in the field. Let's get it done now, versus having to reschedule and come back 3 weeks later. So just some examples. Reminder of what we do. We build these 3D platforms. Since we've last talked to you, I think we had 1 issued patent. We have 5 now total issued. And we're building these platforms. But the real secret of what we do is our software. So we're getting into more of a software play in terms of the licensing of our software that can be put in any drone. So we're bringing autonomy to these professional applications around enterprise, public safety, defense. when it also comes to being an entrepreneur, you got to figure out who your markets are. What we figured out since we last spoke to you, while we thought public safety was really where we were going to go, what we found out is that enterprise and defense are really our primary markets right now. We love to sell into public safety, but the price points there are just very difficult for us to accomplish. So that's kind of a tertiary or secondary market for us right now. So we're not really attacking that one very hard. We've chosen the enterprise and also the DoD. We are a dual use company, so we do work with the government. Why are we different? You might be wondering, well, okay, great. You have these UAVs. What makes them different? First of all, they're very easy to operate. I mentioned that earlier with the training. Companies need and organizations take a lot of time to train their pilots. Even if they're good pilots, they might take a week to train them, and that can eat up a lot of the budget. And public safety has that same problem, in fact. So we make ours very easy to operate. In fact, when we were there last year in person, we were having kids. You might have some pictures of that from last year. We do. Kids, 5-year-olds flying the drone, and they were just taking like 30 seconds to learn it, and they were doing a great job flying it around that little garage you guys had there. So we can do that, and then you layer in the customized AI. That's another big differentiator, is that we can load customized AI libraries onto our vehicle, onto our platform. This is something the enterprise has asked for, and they aren't finding it. And they're telling us that, hey, you guys are doing that. That's amazing. Why does that matter? Why is that important? It's important because most enterprise these days, companies are building their own data sets of what's important to them. They treat that as proprietary. If they buy an off-the-shelf drone, there's no guarantee that that data is going to go somewhere. So that to them, their data is important. They want to use that data, then go out in the field, gather more data, get more insights, make decisions. And then, of course, we layer in the GPS denied part, which is a big deal. GPS denied, why does that matter? Well, you can't fly indoors without the ability to be able to fly in a GPS denied environment. Or there's many outdoor spaces, such as cities, what we call urban canyons. You're flying through buildings and things and you lose signal. If you've ever been in the city and you've got walking around with your cell phone and you're like, how come it's confusing me? It doesn't know which direction to go. That's why it doesn't have all of you need at least 4 satellite signals, and you might be missing one, as an example. As I mentioned, we take our vehicles, we make them very easy to work with. One touch point and click navigation. What you're seeing on the screen here is an obstacle course we set up in our office. So we're flying around. On the top picture there, on the bottom picture, the drone is actually mapping. It's mapping as it's going. So as soon as it takes off, it says, oh, I'm in an unknown environment. I don't know where I am. Let me figure out what's around me. Oh, there's a pillar over there. Oh, there's a wall over there. Okay. And it's going to avoid all that. And we can program in the user, actually, the end user can tell the parameters that they want. I don't want you to get too close to the wall, or, hey, I want you to get closer because I need to take a closer look. So you can do all that and literally press buttons to do that. Why, again, do people care about autonomy and AI? It's all about ROI, and it's all about safety. And safety can be boiled right into ROI. So we could really put those together. Since we last saw you, we've gone into many different environments where we're flying around in austere environments through tunnels and in silos and things like that. There's a lot of places where inspections need to be made of these kind of areas in the world. On the far right, you see a picture. It's maybe hard to see, but there's a small drone there. It's flying around a cell phone tower. So we've demoed autonomous flight around those types of things too, where certain things need to be inspected. And that's kind of where we are with some of these things. We were just a month ago in Israel. We were a small group of companies selected to go to demo and go to a challenge with the Israeli Ministry of Defense, and the U.S. Pentagon as well was there. And it was a very challenging environment that they'd set up in the middle of the desert. Didn't need to be in the desert, but it happened to be in the desert because we were flying indoors, so it didn't matter. But we demoed our capability to fly around indoors. You see there a staircase. We're flying up the staircase, mapping around us. We were presented an award by the U.S. ambassador there, going up against some very formidable type competitors that are much, much bigger than us. And so it was a great experience, and also great validation of what we're doing. And, you know, we know we're going in the right direction. At the end of the day, everything we do as a company is to give actionable aerial intelligence. And we're doing that through autonomy. So you can go to places where people can't go, don't want to go, etc. The market, not going to jump into this too much, but in case you're wondering, what's the market like? This is a very general slide, but there's a lot of, you can break this down per industry, et cetera, as well. But it is growing. It's gone through its ups and downs. As I mentioned, right now, there's a big focus on self-flying software, and that's really where the growth is. And that's where we play. Dual use company, working with different types of organizations, and a solid pipeline that's growing. Last time you saw us, we were still kind of in a, what I would call late stage development. Now we're actually in the go-to market stage, where we're actually literally talking to customers, prospects, et cetera, getting on GSA schedules, things like that, that are now, leading to this year growth. As I mentioned, 5 issued patents. We are completely made in the USA. We did a seed round. I think somebody in the room was here that helps people with crowdfunding. So we actually did a regulation crowdfund way back 2 years ago. We're a TEDCO portfolio company. We're actually going through some bridge funding right now, which I'll just explain at the end of the presentation. And roadmap is we have already launched our Minotaur, which is the stuff I was showing you just now. All the slides I showed you was around that particular product. We are also launching a pure AI autonomy software stack called Athena, which actually is launching right now. It says Q3, but we're a little bit early. We're actually have our pilot customer right now in Q2, so we're excited about that. The Campy there, you see that? That's actually a counter UAS. That is still a little bit ways to go, but with the Ukraine stuff going on, we're getting a lot of phone calls and requests to get something fielded, and so we're trying to get some funding lined up for that right now as well. As far as kind of the long term, how do we think about strategy? What are we trying to do? I won't read every bullet point here, but essentially we're at the point right now where we have this, human machine interaction that happens that's fairly autonomous. And then as we get into the next few years, really getting into the pure machine to machine interaction where, your machines are talking to each other and you have a distributed sort of sensors on different platforms that are now talking to each other and are able to really just kind of complete a mission on their own. As far as sales go, this is a big challenging aspect for us right now, not because we don't have opportunities, but because we're a small company and we need to, beef up to really kind of get out there. We've established a couple of resellers. We have now in process of 2 GSA schedules with partners. We've lined up Carasoft as one of our government partners, which is a relatively big reseller. We are starting to beef up our international strategy, figure out the export licenses, all those things. We were just on a call with an Indian partner this morning prior to this presentation. So a lot of those things are happening. We're also getting very specific with our trade shows and where we go. Specifically, we did attend AUVSI, which is the largest unmanned robotics conference in the world, just a few weeks ago. We went as part of the Maryland contingent with the Maryland Department of Commerce. So that was an honor to be able to, to be asked to do that and to be there with them. Where is the company going? We have a lot of M&A interest right now. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the M&A market for aerospace and defense is very hot. Given the current environment where the economy is going, that's probably cooling a little bit, but still there. We're doing a convertible note right now and raising $1 million. We're actually in process of doing another regulation crowdfund potentially this summer as well, because we kind of got familiar with that type of raise. And for those in the room that are familiar with it, it's still a lot of effort, but it's a lot of digital marketing type of effort. And I'm happy to share that experience with anybody as well. So that's a little bit what we are. Some of the challenges I mentioned already. One of them is, that we've got to beef up our sales and marketing, and we need the right resources for that, which means we need to hire essentially, or at least work with the right partners for that. But outside of that, I'd say that's the biggest one. Once we get that moving and going in the right direction, then, the revenues are really going to increase and we're going to see, I think, a lot of growth. And then we'll get to the scaling model, which is a whole nother problem to solve. Right now, we're just, solving the growth problem of, okay, we've got some things here. We've still got a small team. We've got to make it work with our small team, make it happen. And then we can start growing. those are some of the things right now that we face as a company. The other thing I'll add around challenges and obstacles are just that some of the problem sets we solve. It takes a forward-thinking company to say, hey, let me embrace autonomy and AI. Because your traditionalists are typically going to say, hey, we're not going to do anything unless there's an ROI. And so you got to kind of jump in there and take a leap of faith. So those are the type of companies we're looking to talk to. Those are the kind of companies we are talking to right now. Thank you so much. I'd love to get into Q&A and or any kind of interactive discussion. Thank you, Graham.
Excellent. Great update, Pramod. Thank you very much. I have lots of questions, but I'll look back here behind me and see if anybody else has questions to get us started. Yes, Tina.
Thank you so much for the update. Congratulations on your growth. I understand the struggle to try to meet opportunity and demand. So I applaud you on all of your work. The question that I had, not being a tech person, but in the presentation, you showed a graph that showed that you have product, software, and service, and that the product is not where you're concentrating. Software can be plugged into other products, but the services was the largest part of your revenue stream. But I'm not clear on how your services work. So could you help us understand that, please?
Yeah, I think there might have been a let me look at it. Yeah, so services is actually not the largest part. No, I think those lines were more around the gross profits, operating expense. So these are essentially projections. Services are not the largest part right now at all. It's a very small portion. Most of our revenue, just to clarify, in the first few years of the company was around R&D contracts, SIBRs and things like that, right? So we had some small contracts with the Department of Homeland Security, which we were a sub on a prime there, which was really funding for developing autonomous indoor technology. And we also have some SIBRs from Air Force, National Science Foundation. We actually have a partnership industry agreement with the University of Maryland as well, where we have some revenues and funding coming in from that. So this year, early 2022 is when we're seeing some of our first product revenue. Prior to this, we did have some services revenue as well, which was really engineering services, right? Which was a company that comes to us and says, hey, I need your help with CADing this, putting it together, prototype, etc. We're very good at that. We've stayed away from doing that in a large way because we don't want to, we're trying to become a product company, right? And the product, when I say product, I'll probably change the slide after you just asked that question, because software is also product, right? Because when I mentioned the AI software stack, which is we have our first pilot customer for that, and we're working out the licensing agreement and the numbers around that. That's like where we see the real scale happening, right? Because
that seems like that would be key to me.
Yes,
leveraging your licensing agreements.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the big focus right now. You might be asking, well, why are you doing product? Or it just so happens that we started down that path and we built something that was fairly unique, and we said, all right, the market's demanding it, we might as well build it. However, we can pull out this software and make it work in other places. So let's do that, more of the long-term play. Is the hardware play going to be in place for us long-term? I don't know. I don't think so. It might not be, but I can tell you for the foreseeable future, there's a lot of demand for platforms. An average person that's looking in that doesn't know the industry might think, well, isn't the market saturated with drones? I see them in the news. I see them everywhere. The answer is not really. In fact, what you're seeing in Ukraine is a lot of makeshift stuff. There's stuff flying around with duct tape on it. So we're actually getting calls from people that are working directly with them saying, hey, we need robust platforms that are properly engineered for the things we're trying to do. So I know I answered your question in a very long-winded way, but what you're seeing in Ukraine and the news is actually a window into the future. You're watching what's probably going to take place in terms of the next how many ever years of how people work with drones in that world of warfare, which is not a world that any of us really want to see proliferate in any big way, but you're watching that happen. And then of course those innovations will drive other commercial innovations, as they've always done over history.
We have another question from Laura from Members First.
Well, I have a question. She pretty much asked similarly the same question. My question was, are you modifying existing drones to certain specifications and including your software? But it sounds like you're doing a little bit of both. But I do want to comment, I was on your website while you were chatting, and I just absolutely adore your Master Jedi quote that you have there. That just tells me that you're an awesome company right there if you're quoting Yoda. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, okay, so in terms of your question, though, that was you were just
Well, I think
regarding.
I think
That was
it
answered,
previously
okay.
answered in what it is that you're actually producing or modifying to put into the market.
Mm.
So am I correct in understanding that you produce, but then you also provide software for other companies to then, or other individuals to modify their existing drones?
Yeah, we do. And right now we're getting our feet wet with that, right? We were looking for the right pilot customers to start to, figure that out, because even if you have software, it has to work with hardware. You have to integrate it, implement it. So if you imagine sort of your car, and the Tesla is a great example I like to use, where they have software and they send out updates every week or two or whatever it is. That's the idea here, is that you're working with a piece of hardware and then you're sending the software updates over the air. So we've partnered with a company right now that is building actually kind of a complementary type of drone like ours, which is meant for indoors, although it's highly tactical and very military focused, much more than ours is. And so we thought it was a great fit, and they're looking to implement some of our algorithms, essentially our software algorithms on board. Now, in order to do that, they need a certain type of hardware, a little LiDAR, if you're familiar with LiDAR, which is a laser-based type of system. And so they selected one, and we are now, in the process of integrating it. And then there'll be some testing and things like that. We're also have a couple other lined up with companies that have like big drones that are like heavy lift, that are designed for logistics supply in the military or medical supply, that can carry lots of weight and are designed for much larger operations. They would like to see some of that same autonomy that they don't necessarily have. What we're finding is that there's a lot of companies building drones, but there's not a lot, they don't have the autonomy that they want. And so then when we have conversations with them, they're like, oh, we want that. So we haven't really gone out and done a huge sales effort for that yet, mainly because we wanted to get a few pilot customers under our belt to prove that we could do it. And then, and then hit the market in a bigger way.
Andrew.
You said you had issues with hardware and processing power. What hardware are you using, and how are you utilizing your processing capability?
Yeah, so that was just a general statement across the industry that I made, that in general there's been this sort of limitation. However, to answer your question about what we use, yeah, we use NVIDIA products. So we are starting to work with some other things like Qualcomm and things like that. But NVIDIA, we find some of the NVIDIA boards to be the best on the market in terms of the ability to put lots of computational power on board. And typically these boards that are where you're putting, advanced algorithms, advanced software on, they're typically a little bigger than, they're a little on the bigger side. So you can only get so small if you want a lot of computational power right now as we speak. So there are some hardware limitations. That's a general statement. It applies to the whole industry, not just to us.
Permo, do you have a hard out 9:30? Or can you stick around for more
I can
questions?
stick around a little longer. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Rick from Startup Portal.
Yeah, I guess my general question is, where do you manufacture a drone in the United States? And
Yeah.
Just the process of how you would go about getting the manufacturing done.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, we are able to manufacture in low quantities right here in Maryland. We have our own 3D printers and integration shop, all that where we can put all these things together and then test them. We in fact have our own flight facility, indoors and outdoors, to test as well, right near the University of Maryland campus, which is where we're based. However, to build in volume, we've established a few partnerships for that. So we have a few companies that we are working with, but we haven't selected one for like a final where we're going to say, okay, you guys are it. One is in Houston, Texas, just so you know, and another one is there's a little capability here in Maryland as well as in Virginia. So we're exploring all those, but the one that we like the most is really in Houston, Texas, where they really embrace additive at scale. And what I mean by additive at scale is 3D printing at scale. Traditionally, the mindset has been, okay, you can 3D print, build your prototype, but then once you go to large scale manufacturing, you're going to have to do an injection mold of some sort, because now you have the same, thing. We kind of have resisted that, because every time something changes, you need to adjust your body. For example, we can put different payloads on our, and I'll actually share another picture here in a second if I can find it, where we can put different payloads. We can swap out different payloads into our drone fairly easily. So if you came to me and said, hey, I have this kind of camera, can you work with it? We could quickly CAD it up, print a part, 3D part, put your camera on board and test it out, and then start figuring out what the limitations are, or if there's a problem we need to solve, etc. So there's a company in Texas called Alchemy Industrial, and they have started just in the last couple of years, and they focus on 3D printing technologies at scale for companies like us to say, okay, hey, we can change the designs as needed and still scale with you guys at a reasonable cost, versus having to say go to China and print, several thousand injection molds, but manufacturing traditionally in the last I don't know how many years really, has not really been happening in the United States, to your point. And I think it's coming back, and we're trying to be part of that solution. We're the DoD specifically is very adamant about manufacturing in the USA right now. There's a lot of bans on Chinese drones. And so we've gone to great length to make sure our supply chain is solid, and then build here as well.
That's a good thing, as Martha Stewart would say. Vicky from Ting, you have a question?
Thanks, Graham. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hi, fellow TERP alum here. Congratulations on all your success, and awesome to see another alumni out doing great things. Though I am interested in the tech side and am fascinated with all these questions, the thing I love about entrepreneurs is origin story. And I'd love to hear more about what got you to this space outside of education and being an engineer. Like, what specifically about either drones, were you like playing with drones as a kid and that's how you got into it, or what drove you to this?
That's a great question. No, when I was a kid, there were no drones. But I had spaceships and airplanes all over my wall as a kid growing up. Back in those days, of course, some of you probably can't even imagine this, but there was no internet, there was no cell phones, didn't even have a computer. My first computer was an Apple II Plus in the early 80s, or maybe it was a Macintosh, I can't remember. It was a Commodore, sorry, and then the Apple II Plus. Some of you may know those names, some of you may not. But prior to that, I used to get a science kit of the month. I was a part of the science kit of the month club, and I would get a little kit in the mail every month. It would pop up. I couldn't wait till it came, and I would go out and run the experiment, whether it was chemistry or what have you. So pretty fun stuff, good memories with that. But then fast forward to high school, pretty much knew I was going to be an engineer, or at least study it, because I didn't really ever become an engineer in the world, in the sake of profession, being a professional engineer. But I did study it. Aerospace was just something I was very passionate about. And then to answer your question, it was very roundabout to kind of get to this point. I became a commercial airline pilot. I started entrepreneurial companies along the way, none of them related to engineering at all. Most of them were services or B2B type environments. And did that. I've done that for the last 20 years now, 25 years almost. And in just about 4.5 years ago, was introduced here to my co-founder Evandro, as he was working on some technology and wanting to spin it out into a company. So I was introduced to him to be his co-founder and CEO specifically. So it was an arranged marriage. And nobody really knew, other than my wife, that I was really kind of interested in getting back into the aerospace world in some form or fashion. And specifically, as, an entrepreneur executive. So, as things manifested, that's what happened. And that's how we met. We spent a few months kind of figuring out if we knew we wanted to do something like this. And we eventually then, sat down and came up with names and incorporated and all that sort of thing. And when we started, there was really nothing. There was just a prototype that was being worked on. Nothing was working. There was nothing flying at the time. It was just, we have an idea, we have a prototype that's being built, but we haven't proven anything yet. So the first thing we did was actually go after some non-dilutive funding. So we were able to get some funding from the MIPS program, which is the Maryland Industrial Partnership program. And we were then able to get some funding from TEDCO as well. Evandro had already gotten a little bit of funding from TEDCO to start building his prototype. So that was the initial stage, but then we needed more funding to really kind of figure out how to get to the commercial side of things. And then a DHS contract came along that we, were very fortunate to win. They told us there were probably 200 companies that applied for it. We were one of 2 that were selected. So hopefully I didn't get too long-winded there, but I've kind of been selling something or doing something, some kind of side hustle ever since I was in high school. So it's just sort of part of my fabric to sell. I love selling and I don't consider myself a sales guy, so to speak, but I love to, be able to talk about technology, explain what it does in a very simple thing. And one of the rules of sales is that he who, and I don't know if this is the exact quote, but he or she who keeps it stupid simple wins the sales game, right? So we're working with some very advanced technology, but really you have to be able to explain it in a very simple manner to most people. I probably went a little technical with you guys just because, I figured you guys would enjoy that a little bit, but sometimes when I'm talking to people that just aren't in this world, we have to keep it very, very simple.
Is that the first time we've heard you say that you're a commercial airline pilot? I don't
Maybe.
feel like
Yeah,
we
I
do
think
that.
that's the first.
Yeah.
That you should definitely fold that into your story when you're pitching and explaining who you are. We have
Definitely.
a question on Facebook, I believe, right, Gabby?
Yes, we have a comment from Jen Young of Prevalent Spirits here in Westminster. She says, I work in the DC area tech FedCon world, and I think we know a lot of the same people. Very cool to see a presentation like this in Westminster. And she says, if you need more help connecting with FedCon companies, to let her know.
Yeah, we
Absolutely.
can make that intro. She's on our board of directors at Magic.
Please do. I would love that. Thank you.
Any other final questions as we kind of wrap up? Andrew?
Have you looked into taking the brain out of the drone and doing more of a virtual machine type of interfacing where you have more processing power on the ground and then simplify what you're flying as just a node of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so that is possible. Yes, absolutely. And there are companies doing that for sure. We chose to focus on the edge because that's where the market was going, right? So what you described is already being done. And that's not necessarily, I mean, it's definitely innovation, don't get me wrong, but it's already being done. What's the innovation here is that how do you actually, and that's what I had kind of had in that first slide of, the industry problem and what we're solving, which is, hey, people are having trouble doing things on the edge. And I'll give you 2 examples. One might be you're in a search and rescue situation, and you're like, hey, I need to send a message right now through AI. And this is not a human just looking through a camera, but the actual AI saying, oh, I think I see somebody alive. Let me send a message right now to the tablet, one of the slides I had a tablet. And it's going to pop up and say, hey, go here, because that's where we think somebody's alive. Or I'll give you an example that's not so crucial. It's not mission critical in terms of time, but it could save a company a lot of money. So talking to companies that are doing inspections of, say, cell phone towers or power lines and things like that, they send their crews out there to do these things, right? Well, if they have a drone that's going up a cell phone tower and it sees something that's kind of important that needs to be fixed, they could say, hey, you know what? We'll get the crew back out here in, a week and we'll fix it. Or we know about it right now and it's sending us an insight and telling us, hey, I see something right now that's an anomaly. You might want to take a look at that. They can do it right there when they're in the field. And I'm not making that up. That's actually what they've told us. They've said, hey, if you can save us that time right there, that's an ROI just in itself. That, hey, we've already got the crew out there. We don't need to go post-process this or look at it a little bit later, on the ground, on the computer. And we don't have somebody else sitting somewhere looking at it. We can actually see it right now as the drone is up there. And not to mention that the person flying the drone doesn't have to really pay attention to it because the AI is already built in, right? And they may miss it with the human eye. There's actually a great example of a little over a year ago, maybe, of a bridge that collapsed, and they had an engineering company fly a drone around this bridge, and they got 5 hours of footage. And I know this isn't directly to your question because your question was around nodes, and I get it, but they had to go post-process this data and look at it. And so now they're looking at a computer screen and looking and seeing what they find, and they missed something. And unfortunately, the bridge collapsed, and it was something that they had missed. And I forgot where that was, but it's on Google. It's somewhere in the southwestern United States. And that was kind of a big deal. But if they had some sort of anomaly detection that said, hey, if there's anything, a crack, for example, bigger than 5 inches or whatever, tell us now. Other stuff we can post-process, no problem. But I need to know 2 or 3 or 4 specific things that if the drone sees right now, I want to know about it so I can actually do something. Or do an early, we can fix it earlier rather than wait. So.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Then the final question is, what can we as a community do to help you?
Well, I appreciate that question. And one of them is exactly what that Facebook inquiry was. Hey, love to meet, love to connect, see if we can intersect somehow. That's always great. We love introductions to complementary companies. If you think of any companies in Westminster or otherwise that are doing things that are, potentially complementary, we love those kind of partnerships, because what I'm seeing in the industry is that there's no one company that can solve every problem, right? And typically problems that are looking to get solved or people that are seeking a problem to get solved, sometimes it takes partnerships of multiple companies to actually solve that problem. So we're very, very open to that. We are, as I mentioned, fundraising. So if you think of any angels or groups that might be interested in chatting, getting a presentation, or just understanding this market space, would love to chat with them as well. And anything we can do to help you guys on the STEM side, we love, educating and kind of helping in terms of, we're very passionate. Somebody asked me, I forgot it was Tina, or somebody asked me a question about how I got started. I was super interested in science and engineering, and we see a lot of kids that lose that interest, usually in middle school around that time frame, because they find math hard or something, and then they kind of give up. And I think being exposed to real world stuff can be very motivational, right? And you can see the end result of something you're working on or somebody is working on, and it can motivate you. And that's what motivated me. I wasn't actually that great at math, but you knew you had to get through it to be able to do the things you wanted to do. And so I think that exposing kids to different things. So when we were at your event last year and we saw the little kids coming over, that, we love that, right? Because they're getting to see stuff in action that's real. And I think there was a model robotics club that was there too. So that was really great to see. So we're happy to connect, and if we can help in any way or do a presentation or demos or what have you, if you want to bring people over to us at some point later in the summer, happy to entertain all that.
And where are you located in terms of your offices?
Yeah, we're in College Park, Maryland.
Okay, all right. Not too far. All right, great.
Not too far.
Well, let's give a round of applause to Pramod. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And we've got about 15 minutes for community updates. Pramod, you're welcome to hang out.
Okay.
But we're just going to do some community updates now.
Well, I'm gonna take off. I've got plenty of things on the plate here that have to get done today. And really appreciate the time today, and anything I can do, please feel free to connect as well. I'm on, I think Graham, Gabby, you guys have all my info.
Yeah, we'll share your contact information
share
for
it,
anyone
yeah.
who has connections for you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod.
Bye.
All right. Who has an update? Billy? Do you have an update? We can bring you up here so we can kind of speak to the group here. That shouldn't be too
I
weird.
love being singled out.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing good stuff, man.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning.
If I haven't met you before, I'm Billy Ladd. I run a studio on Bond Street. It's called Wisdom Court Entertainment. And then I also run a nonprofit called Find Your Purpose. So community updates. June 5th at Two Style Barbershop, we're doing a free community haircut for the kids. We're getting 40 kids. Well, I'm literally handpicking 40 kids, and we have 10 barbers, so it's 4 kids per barber, and we're giving everybody free haircuts. And it's gonna be right there. We're gonna have food out front and stuff like that. So if anybody's free, just walk on up. I think it's from 12 to 5 or 12 to 6. If you have any flyers or anything that could be beneficial to the youth or just the community that you might not get to see all the time, come through. June 9th, we are doing a kickball game at City Park with the Westminster Police Department. And it's going to be, it's something that me, Major Gibson, and Chief Lewo put together. And it's going to be a community versus the police department in the kickball game. It's gonna be food, drinks, music and everything. And that's June 9th at City Park. Then on June 18th, we're doing the first Juneteenth festival in Westminster, and that's gonna be at the Art Center. And it's gonna be like gospel music, hip hop, dance, painters, all types of different food vendors and stuff like that. And the Art Center is trying to work with the community more to bring, like, since Westminster is growing, they're trying to show the culture that we have in Westminster, that it's not just the wine festivals and cows anymore. It's a lot of different people around. So we're trying to showcase that, but also make like the different people that are coming up here feel more comfortable, like, hey, there is something for all of us in Westminster and within Carroll County. So yeah, I'm just one of the, I guess, innovative people trying to like change how things are here, because I've been here all my life. And as we grow our generation, my generation who used to be out here running around the streets, now like we know the community, so now we're like stepping up to be like, okay, boom, let's not repeat and do something different for our kids. I think that's all.
That's good.
Thank you.
Anyone else have an update? Community update? Rick? Come on up.
It's hard to follow Billy well. It really is. So you go from hip to non-hip.
Say that.
But what can you say? All right, so today, a good example of equity crowdfunding at its finest, raising capital, as you saw. So one of the things we found is that no one knows what equity crowdfunding is. And we asked people, how many here have heard of it, equity crowdfunding, right? So you're from being around for, I guess maybe around me for a while now, seeing it, but people don't know what it is. So it's raising capital through the crowd. So every Thursday in June, we're doing a seminar, online seminar, basically defining equity crowdfunding from, people raising capital via equity or convertible notes to people using revenue share. Or if you have a business today generating revenue, you could actually, in a sense, borrow and pay back based on revenue. And it gives you a nice long time. So good examples of how people fund their business in that in-between stage, where you have a plan, and you go to the bank, and they'll like come back later when you've kind of, no offense to the banker here, but come
No,
back
that's, we
later.
want you to come back later.
Yeah, you want to come back later, but, so every Thursday, Eventbrite is online, sign up. Hopefully give you good, fun examples. Maybe we can talk about Airgility. I point like he's still there, but yeah, so we'll give you some really good examples and how it's done, and to Parad's point, keep it simple. So that's the key, because it gets complicated and technical, but it's not. So every Thursday, Eventbrite, 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Updates from the community. Anybody have something they want to just share real quick? Yeah, please come up. Please introduce yourself.
First time I've been here.
Well,
I've heard lots about you. Yeah. I'm Melinda Ditson. I'm the internship coordinator at Century High School, and Marcy has to take out and take a call, but she's the internship coordinator at Liberty. And so we send interns out into the community. So we're always looking for business and partnerships. What we're really looking for right now are computer science and technology placements for our interns. We have a new computer programming completer at Century and at Liberty. And so we have very bright students who are very excited about getting some hands-on experience for next school year. And so we're trying to match them in the community. We're also looking for some finance internships. So that's kind of what we're looking for. To give you just a little bit of background, for students to do an internship, they have to have a senior, they have to be a senior. They have to have a 2.5 GPA or better. That's really not well represented. My lowest GPA last semester was a 3.6. Lots of my students are 4.4 kids going out, especially my computer kids. And so they have to do that. They have to have 4 classes in the area of their interest. So like a finance kid would have to have accounting 1, accounting 2, finance, and personal Excel. And the computer programming students and I'm not a techie, it's like, I don't know what it is, but they have to have their math. And then there's 3 classes in the computer program that they work with on at different levels for that. And like I said, it's a fairly new major and it's pretty techy. So I need to do a little bit more research on that. So if anybody's interested in talking afterwards, we do have a great process. We'd love to set a meeting, give you more information if you'd like to maybe host a student next year. Okay.
Thank you very much. Belinda?
We host students all the time.
That's right. Well, we hosted, I'll add real quick that, yeah, we can attest to the quality of students that are coming out of Carroll County Public Schools right now. We had 2 high school seniors, one from Liberty, one from Winters Mill, who were here all semester learning Python and ROS with the help of Carl. Carl actually helped us with lending some technology to this effort. And by the end of their semester in their internship with us, not only did they help us sort of like create this new curriculum and help us understand the challenges that students at their level would have in interacting with these technologies, but they actually then, by the end of it, were able to get this autonomous vehicle called DuckyBot to run autonomously, seamlessly on the track using computer vision and proximity sensors. And to juxtapose that, when they first got their hands on it, it was not moving at all. And then when it did move, it moved off the track, or it was like kind of constantly like bumper cars bumping into things. And by the end, they had it running smoothly, and they had figured out like how to update the Python code basically to do that. So anyway, yes, no, we're looking forward to placing more students in our internship program this fall. So we'll talk to you about that. Any other updates? Yes, Laura, come on up.
This is my second time here, so thanks for having me again, guys.
Of course.
I'm with Members First Credit Union, and we are a not-for-profit financial institution. So what we do as part of our core mission is we go out into the communities that we serve, Westminster and Carroll County being one of our service areas, and we teach financial literacy to students and adults through their workplace or their volunteer organizations that they're involved in. So if anyone would like that at their place of business or even at the schools, we do have student-centric programs to take into school scenarios to help complement what the kids are learning in their math classes and their finance classes, but then to take that and put that into real world scenarios through, understanding how credit works, understanding the threats of identity theft through your financial behaviors, all the way up to, this is typically for adults and employees circumstances, but what you need to do to prep to get a mortgage next year. So all those things in between, we can help with your organizations, your schools, your businesses to help your people understand financial literacy better in a real world, day-to-day kind of an environment. So if you ever need anything, just let me know. Thanks.
And you're up in Hanover, right?
Yeah, so I cover, I'm a relationship officer. So I cover Hanover, all of Adams County and Carroll County.
Okay.
All right, thanks again for having me.
Laura. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Tina, do you want to send us off?
Absolutely. Well, thank you to Airgility for that update. That was wonderful, amazing. It's during technology. How cool can you get, right? And thank you to Magic for the space here, Startup Portal for everything you do. And thank you to everybody who has come to help with this entrepreneurial community. I want to, before I totally send us out, congratulate anybody and everybody who had put in an application for the Carol Biz Challenge through the Chamber of Commerce. The deadline was last night. I know I saw a couple going up close to midnight. But I also want to remind you that the email that you got, if you were a participant and actually applied to the Biz Challenge, includes a link to be able to present here at 1 Million Cups as part of the start of whatever business idea you may have. We're here to help you plug into the entrepreneurial spirit, the amazing community that we have here in Westminster. So if you are part of the Biz Challenge, go ahead and click on the link to the form that is in Steve's email. If you did not apply for the Biz Challenge, then you're welcome to go to the website 1 Million Cups, the number 1millioncups.com/Westminster, click apply to present, fill out a couple of sentences. We'll help you if you don't know what a deck is. It's all good. We'll get you up here and help you plug into the entrepreneur community. Sometimes we have one speaker, presenter, sometimes we have two, and next week it could be you. So we'll see you then.
Thanks, Tina.